The air inside State House on the morning of Wednesday, 17 September 2025, was thick with unspoken tension, a heavy silence that often precedes a political earthquake. The members of the ZANU-PF Politburo were gathering for what was expected to be a routine meeting. However, whispers had already begun to circulate through the corridors of power, suggesting that this day would be anything but ordinary. President Emmerson Mnangagwa, Vice President Constantino Chiwenga. The long-simmering rivalry between them was about to erupt into open warfare, threatening to shatter the fragile unity of the ruling party. The atmosphere felt personal, as if years of mistrust were finally converging. Before the main Politburo meeting even commenced, Vice President Chiwenga took an audacious step that signaled his intent. He made a surprise visit to President Mnangagwa's office at State House, seeking a direct face-to-face confrontation away from the prying eyes of the full committee. It was a bold move designed to corner the president and force his hand. Chiwenga, a former general who orchestrated the 2017 coup that brought Mnangagwa to power, arrived not with pleasantries but with a clear set of non-negotiable demands: corruption, loyalty, the very soul of the party, being sold to the highest bidder. This private meeting was the first tremor before the main shockwave. Fault lines within ZANU-PF centered on succession. Mnangagwa's allies pushing to extend his rule beyond 2 terms, a plan dubbed the 2030 Agenda. Chiwenga saw this as a profound betrayal. He believed the president was using a network of wealthy business people to build a political war chest and secure loyalties. He felt sidelined, his own ambitions derailed. The stage was set for a battle for control. Politburo members arrived sensing palpable hostility. An uneasy quiet settled as they awaited the 2 most powerful men, 𝙤𝙤𝙩𝙪, the elephant in the room. When the Politburo meeting was finally called to order, Vice President Chiwenga did not waste time with formalities. He rose to his feet, holding a thick dossier that contained what he claimed was irrefutable evidence. He began by presenting a bombshell allegation that struck at the heart of President Mnangagwa's network of benefactors. Chiwenga accused the prominent petroleum tycoon, 𝙤𝙤𝙩𝙪, of siphoning a staggering $3.2 billion from a secret 45% stake that ZANU-PF allegedly held in his company, 𝙒𝙖𝙩 Holdings. He argued this money was being diverted to create parallel structures and fund a personal loyalty network for the president. Chiwenga's presentation was methodical and damning. He detailed how these vast sums were allegedly being used to finance the 2030 Agenda, a campaign aimed at keeping Mnangagwa in power indefinitely. The dossier implicated a group of controversial businessmen, often seen in the president's company. Wicknell Chivayoscott, Sakopwanya Delish Ngawaya Chiwenga, called them the architects of 𝙤𝙤𝙩𝙪, a sprawling enterprise of corruption that was eroding the party's revolutionary principles from within. With the dossier laid bare, Chiwenga moved to his demands, which were delivered with the unyielding force of a military command. He did not ask for a commission of inquiry or a gentle reprimand. He demanded action, immediate and severe. His primary demand was the swift arrest of 𝙤𝙤𝙩𝙪 and his associates, Chivayo, Sakopwanya, Ngawaya, for their alleged role in looting party and state funds. This was not a suggestion, it was an ultimatum. President Emmerson Mnangagwa's reaction to Chiwenga's frontal assault was a mixture of shock anger, theatrical defiance. Initially, during the private confrontation at State House before the meeting, sources say the president reacted with unbridled fury. He felt ambushed and deeply betrayed by his deputy's aggressive tactics. The direct accusation of presiding over a system of grand corruption, delivered by the very man who helped him ascend to the presidency, was a stunning blow. According to insiders, Mnangagwa, feeling the pressure and possibly testing the loyalty of those around him, angrily threatened to resign from his position, a dramatic gesture intended to rally his supporters and paint Chiwenga as a destabilizing force. Once in the formal Politburo meeting, Mnangagwa adopted a more composed but equally combative posture. He listened intently as Chiwenga laid out his allegations, his expression hardening with each accusation. When it was his turn to speak, he did not immediately address the specifics of the corruption dossier. Instead, he launched into a powerful emotional speech about party unity, discipline, the dangers of internal division. He reminded the members of the struggles the party had overcome. He warned that infighting would only serve their political enemies. It was a classic political maneuver, shifting the focus from the substance of the allegations to the perceived disloyalty of the accuser. The president then turned his attention to 𝙤𝙤𝙩 directly, though his words were couched in broader terms. He spoke of the importance of following established party procedures and channels, implying that 𝙤𝙤𝙩's public confrontation was an act of insubordination. By framing the conflict in this way, Mnangagwa sought to cast himself as the guardian of constitutional order and 𝙤𝙤𝙩 as a reckless usurper. The explosive confrontation between the president and his vice president immediately split the Politburo into distinct and warring factions. As soon as 𝙤𝙤𝙩 finished his presentation, a few brave members voiced their support for his stance. They felt marginalized by the president's inner circle and were alarmed by the growing influence of businessmen. They saw 𝙤𝙤𝙩's move as a necessary, albeit risky, intervention to save the party from itself. On the other side, Mnangagwa's staunchest allies rallied to his defense. Leading the charge was the party's spokesperson, Christopher Mutsvangwa, a perennial loyalist to the president. Mutsvangwa and others argued these entrepreneurs were patriots helping to build the economy and supporting the party financially. A significant portion of the Politburo remained silent, caught between the two towering figures. Their silence was calculated self-preservation. They watched intently, trying to gauge who held the upper hand. The unexpected silence of 𝙕𝙤𝙦 Mpofu was notable. As Secretary General, his duty was to manage party affairs and maintain discipline, yet he offered no defense of the president, a move Mnangagwa saw as a grave betrayal. The debate raged on. Accusations and counter-accusations flew across the room. 𝙤𝙤𝙩 supporters warned Zvigananda Gate was alienating the rural base and giving ammunition to the political opposition. They warned the party could not go into the next election tainted by corruption allegations. Mnangagwa's defenders insisted the 2030 agenda was a popular grassroots demand meant to ensure stability and continuity. They painted 𝙤𝙤𝙩's challenge as an elite-driven plot out of touch with ordinary members, setting the stage for a dramatic showdown. In the immediate aftermath of the stormy Politburo meeting, President Mnangagwa knew he had to act swiftly to reassert his authority and punish those he perceived as disloyal. Within days, he announced an emergency reshuffle of the Politburo, a move that was less about administrative reorganization and more about political retribution. It was a calculated strike aimed directly at 𝙤𝙤𝙩's power base and a clear message to anyone who dared to question his leadership. The most significant casualty of the reshuffle was 𝙕𝙤𝙦 Mpofu. For his perceived betrayal, his damning silence during the confrontation, he was unceremoniously removed from the powerful position of Secretary General. Mnangagwa demoted Mpofu to the far less influential post of Secretary for ICT, effectively sidelining him. This dramatic demotion sent a shockwave through the party, demonstrating that even the most senior officials were not immune from the president's wrath. To fill the void, Mnangagwa appointed Jacob Mudenda, the Speaker of Parliament, as the new Secretary General. This was a masterstroke of political strategy. Mudenda is widely seen as a stickler for rules and a constitutionalist, and his appointment was framed as a move to restore order and cohesion within the party. More importantly, he is a staunch Mnangagwa loyalist. By placing him at the administrative helm of ZANU-PF, the president ensured that the party machinery would be firmly under his control. Patrick Chinamasa, another loyalist, was appointed Treasurer General, securing control over the party's finances. The reshuffle was a surgical operation to remove suspected sympathizers of 𝙤𝙤𝙩 from key positions and replace them with unwavering loyalists. It was a classic power play. Mnangagwa won the first round following the Politburo battle. But in doing so, he deepened the divisions within ZANU-PF and escalated the succession struggle into a perilous, high-stakes conflict that threatened to destabilize not just the party but the entire nation. The explosive Politburo meeting and President Mnangagwa's reshuffle have set the stage for a monumental power struggle at ZANU-PF's 22nd National People's Conference, October 13th to 18th at Mutare Polytechnic. With a $5 million fundraising target and 4,000 delegates expected, this is not a routine gathering, but the designated battlefield for the party's soul. September's fallout has raised the stakes. Mnangagwa's tactical victory in purging 𝙕𝙤𝙦 Mpofu and installing loyalists gives him tighter control of party organs. He's pushing for endorsement of his leadership and the 2030 agenda, mobilizing provincial leaders to pass resolutions shutting down 𝙤𝙤𝙩's succession hopes. But 𝙤𝙤𝙩 won't back down. His confrontation exposed deep party divisions, and his corruption allegations continue to resonate. He's consolidating support inside the security sector, rallying disgruntled party veterans trying to get delegates to reject the 2030 agenda and demand accountability over 𝙤𝙤𝙩𝙪. This turns 𝙤𝙤𝙪 into a referendum on Mnangagwa. The road to 𝙤𝙤𝙪 is fraught with peril, a climate of fear, instability and uncertainty. Best case, a tense but managed conference where one side wins. Worst case, a chaotic and contested event that fractures the party, potentially leading to a formal split, or even intervention by security forces. 𝙤𝙤𝙪's resolutions will decide the fate of Mnangagwa, the fate of Chiwenga, and Zimbabwe's political trajectory for the foreseeable future.